Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if the way you speak and the way your brain works are connected in really specific ways? Well, this new study dives deep into that, looking at people who have had strokes and how that affects their ability to form sentences. So, imagine someone has had a stroke, and it has affected their ability to speak clearly or put words together correctly. Scientists have noticed that different people make different kinds of mistakes. Some people might really simplify their sentences, leaving out words, kind of like a telegram. Others might put words in the wrong order or swap words out, making sentences sound a bit jumbled or just plain strange. For a long time, researchers weren't entirely sure where in the brain these different types of language problems originate. They knew strokes could cause these issues, but tying specific mistakes to specific damaged brain areas was tricky. It is like trying to figure out which fuse box controls which appliance in a whole house just by looking at the outside. This study took on that challenge. They looked at people who had strokes a while ago, so the effects on their speech were pretty stable. They had these participants retell the story of Cinderella, that classic fairy tale, and they didn't just listen to the playback. They meticulously analyzed every single sentence the participants said. They developed a really detailed way to code the mistakes. They basically categorized them into two main groups based on a theory of how we plan our sentences. First, there are what they call hierarchical errors. Think of this as problems with the big picture structure of a sentence, like how ideas are nested or how words relate to each other. These are sometimes linked to a pattern called Paragrammatism, where sentences might be fluently spoken but contain unusual substitutions or rearrangements. Then there are linearization errors. These are about putting the sentence together in the right order, making sure the words flow correctly and the grammar rules are followed. These are more like what you see in Agrammatism, where speech can be choppy with missing function words like the or is and simplified sentence structures, often called telegraphic speech. So, they had a team of experts analyze the Cinderella retellings, identifying which sentences had hierarchical errors and which had linearization errors. And they did this for each participant, looking at all the sentences they produced. Critically, they also had brain scans of these participants. They used MRI scans to map out exactly where the damage from the stroke was located in each person's brain. This is the lesion mapping part. Then came the exciting part, connecting the dots. They compared the types of speech errors each person made with the location of their brain damage. They wanted to see if a specific type of error was consistently linked to damage in a particular brain region. And what they found was pretty remarkable. They discovered a clear double dissociation. This means that damage in one set of brain areas was linked to hierarchical errors, while damage in a completely different set of areas was linked to linearization errors. Specifically, hierarchical errors, the ones related to sentence structure and meaning, were associated with damage in the posterior temporal and parietal lobes, kind of in the back and side of the brain. On the other hand, linearization errors, the ones related to word order and putting sentences together smoothly, were linked to damage in the frontal lobe, towards the front of the brain, including areas like the middle and inferior frontal gyrus. This finding strongly supports a two-stage model of how our brains plan sentences. Imagine it like this. First, your brain figures out the meaning and the hierarchical structure of what you want to say, like building the blueprint for a sentence. This seems to happen in the posterior temporal parietal areas. Then, your brain takes that blueprint and turns it into the actual sequence of words, making sure it all streams out correctly. This linearization step seems to be handled by the frontal areas. It's like the brain has two different, but connected, systems for grammar. One system builds the what to say, and the other builds the how to say it in terms of word order. And when one system is damaged, you get a specific type of language error. What is also interesting is what they didn't find. They didn't see a strong link between damage to the famous Broca's area, often thought to be the language center, and these specific syntactic errors in chronic aphasia. This challenges some older ideas and suggests that the neural basis of language is more nuanced than we once thought. Broca's area, it seems, might be involved in other aspects of language or speech production, like fluency or perhaps planning more complex sentences, rather than being the sole culprit for these specific types of grammatical breakdowns. Now, it is important to remember the limitations. Trying to figure out exactly what someone meant to say when they make a mistake is challenging. The researchers themselves point out that coding these errors, especially the more complex hierarchical ones, can be tricky, and even the experts didn't always agree 100% of the time. This suggests we need even more precise ways to define and categorize these errors. But even with those limitations, the findings are super important. They give us a much clearer picture of how our brains handle sentence construction. It means that when someone has trouble speaking after a stroke, we can potentially pinpoint the specific cognitive process that is broken and hopefully develop more targeted therapies. Instead of a general fixed language approach, we can aim to fix hierarchical ordering or linear sequencing. So, what does this mean for us? Well, it highlights the incredible specialization within our brains. It shows that even seemingly similar language problems can stem from damage to different neural circuits. This provides a window into the complex workings of language production and could eventually lead to better ways to help people recover their speech. It's a reminder that understanding the brain, even in cases of damage, can unlock deeper insights into how it all works when it is healthy. This research offers a really detailed look at the brain's language machinery. By dissecting the different types of errors people make, scientists are getting closer to understanding the intricate neural architecture that allows us to communicate. It is a great example of how studying what goes wrong can teach us so much about what goes right. It is fascinating to think about how damage to specific parts of our brain can cause such distinct linguistic problems. This study really supports the idea that language processing isn't just one big blob of activity in the brain, but rather a complex system with specialized modules working together. What is truly exciting is the potential for this research to impact clinical practice. By understanding why someone is making certain speech errors, therapists can tailor their treatments more effectively. This isn't just academic curiosity, it has the potential to make a real difference in people's lives. It's about moving towards more personalized and precise approaches to aphasia rehabilitation. Of course, this is just one piece of the puzzle. Future research will likely delve deeper into the subtle differences between these error types, perhaps looking at even finer-grained distinctions within the brain. They might also explore whether these same neural dissociations hold true for other language disorders, or even in healthy individuals as they learn new languages. It's a dynamic field, and this study adds a crucial layer of understanding. Thanks for joining me on RUBIN'S Mind Lab. If you found this fascinating, give us a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the human mind. See you next time.